In today's Shop Talk video, we'll be talking about high efficiency valve stems. Many years ago, I had the theory that the valve stem could increase efficiency in a trumpet. And to test that theory, I created several different types. This one is a spiral, but most of them are cylindrical. And the idea was to add more inertia in the valve itself, or in the piston, where it's moving. And the issue with pistons is they're moving up and down. Because they have to move so freely, then there's space between the piston itself and the casing. And as a horn wears over time, or as the valves have been lapped more and more, then there's more space in between there. And that space allows a sound wave to take the entire piston and move it. And that vibration will rob your standing wave of energy, meaning that when you go to play various notes, you could actually have issues when you press a certain valve down, or even if one of them is loose enough, even if you don't press it down, it can still be moving in there because the air is going through all three at all times. So it may be that you have issues on certain partials where you feel like you crack a note or it's not as solid or easy to play. That could be because one of your pistons is worn. And most likely it's the first valve because that's the one that's used the most. So high efficiency valve stems work on all brass instruments. They produce the best results on horns that are over like 3 to 5 years old, and really old horns, they actually produce even better results. So let's take a look at them. We're looking at our valve stems, which I custom designed for Harrelson Trumpets. We have been considering offering these for Yamaha and Bach and other brands. This one is our heavyweight version, which probably about a third of our customers choose. It's more efficient, and because it has added mass in the stem, it prevents the entire piston from vibrating. So once this is screwed on there, then it literally dampens a lot of that vibration, and it makes the horn more efficient. And I can't screw that on with one hand. There we go. So I'll put that on. This one came right off the lathe, and we're going to watch one being cut on the lathe here in just a second. We also have lightweight versions, which are this one. And basically there's just more space inside, less mass. Something that we do with our valve stems that you don't see with any other manufacturer is we put a special little recess in there. And that recess centers the spring so that it doesn't make a scratchy noise when you go up and down. Oh, almost lost that. When you slide this spring up and down with the valve guide, it doesn't make a scratchy sound. And we've solved that problem with different brands by simply creating that recess that centers the spring. You can see it right in the middle there. So it's the exact diameter of the spring. Okay, so we're going to watch one of these being made, and this is the CNC lathe that we use to make them. And I'll show you quickly my program. So again, I write all these programs by hand on this machine, and that's basically all G-code that tells me some of its notes for me, tells the machine exactly how to move, what speeds, feed rates, and all of that. And here we can see the screen that's going to show us the drawing of the tool paths. And I'm just going to blow that up so we can see a little closer what the tool paths look like. So that is simply all the movement of all these tools to be able to make that stem. And we will watch one being made right now. So let me turn this on and push go. So there's nothing really exciting happening right now. I'll close the door. It's just doing a facing, and then that was a drill. Now it's going to bore out the inside to the right diameter for the tap. And a lot of times I use single point threading, but on this part we're actually using the tap. And now it's going to spray that tap off so that there's no chips on it. We'll get in here so you can see it. So there, it's tapped apart, and that's just put the threads in. Now we're going to cut the outside profile. Alright, so it's mostly done on the profiling. Here's the finishing pass, coming up one more. So you can see that final pass really creates a nice finish. And it'll be hand finished after this as well. So to be able to remove that stem from the valve casing, we need some knurling, and the next tool is going to do the knurling. There we go. Okay, that's done. Now it's going to cut it off and put it into the subspindle. So there we have a second lathe in the back. It's known as the subspindle. And now it's in the back side, and it's going to machine the rest. So that's doing the threading. I'm going to let it finish up, and we'll grab the part when it's done. But I want to reiterate that we've taken a lot of care into designing and machining the highest quality stems that we can, and we most likely will offer these for other brands at some point. But for Harrelson trumpets, these definitely do help the playability and the efficiency of the horns, and it's something that you may seriously consider. We also make spiral stems and other things, but if you're thinking of a Harrelson trumpet, you would seriously consider the heavyweight version, because that is going to improve efficiency, and it doesn't really add hardly any weight to the instrument. Alright, so now our part is finished, and let's reveal that. Got a bunch of them in here. So it takes about 3.5 minutes to make one of these stems. There it is. And in the machining world for production, 3.5 minutes can seem like an eternity, especially when you compare it to a Bach or Yamaha valve stem that's probably made in under a minute out of aluminum, which is a very inefficient and cheap material, whereas brass literally costs 3 to 5 times as much as aluminum, and it's definitely more challenging to machine in some ways, because the final finish is not going to be just typically a raw brass. We have to do plating and other things to it as well. So there is our Harrelson Trumpets valve stem. So hopefully from this video you have a better idea of how high efficiency valve stems can improve the playability of your horn. And even though they're only available for Harrelson trumpets right now, we will offer them for Bach and Yamaha and perhaps other brands as demand increases. So watch for that in a Kickstarter campaign coming within the next year.